So Nora, 10 years ago this year,
Yeah.
you had suffered a miscarriage. You had a baby. You lost your dad and your husband, Aaron, to cancer within weeks of each other. And then in those 10 years, you've gotten remarried. You blended your family, started this new career, including a hugely successful podcast and a roster of books. And I think you'll probably have shows on television pretty soon. As you're sitting in this chair today, could you have imagined any of this?
No. And I have like an exceptional imagination, I have to say. I imagined a lot of things, but I think I typically use my imagination, like most people, for evil to myself. You know, let's imagine the worst case scenario. Let's imagine the worst possible thing that could happen. But no, this is not something that I could have possibly imagined. And I have to remind myself of that on days when I'm stressed out, that like this is a life beyond my wildest dreams, and that even like the real stressors are a symptom of getting what I really wanted out of life, with a huge asterisk and some things I didn't. Like,
Wait, what do you mean by that?
like when you're having one of those days, like today's a Tuesday technically, but I don't know about you, it feels more like a Perpetual Thursday in January for me. And there's always like a never-ending list of things to do professionally and personally. And I'm not at my best when I feel stressed out or when I feel like I'm not doing a good job at things. But the things that are stressing me out are the fact that we have 4 kids who need and love us and need attention from us, and that I do have a career that, you know, before all of this, I was sitting in a cubicle making PowerPoint presentations. And I could have done that forever, right? I was highly skilled at that.
But what's interesting about that is when you met Aaron, you had decided on your life, which I think is so interesting because I don't know if many people had done that. But one of the things that you decided on was you were going to go to work and he was going to be a stay-at-home dad. But you decided that while you were making PowerPoint presentations.
I did. I decided that on our second date. Because I said I wanted 4 kids, he wanted 2. We shook on 3, and I thought, this man's a sucker. Like, I know I'll get 4 kids out of him. He's obsessed with me. It's our second date, and I can ask him how many kids he wants. And he's like, just like, oh, 2. Very normal conversation. Yeah, he was willing to do that. And we both worked in advertising in the city of Minneapolis. And I thought, well, I'm 27 years old. Clearly, it's too late for me to change my career. I've put 5 whole years of my life into one thing and explored no other options. It's this or nothing. So yeah, I thought we will just get married, have 4 kids. Maybe he'll stay home and freelance. I'll be, riding the girl boss train to the top of the Midwest advertising scene, and we'll take 2 weeks of vacation a year. Probably go to Florida. I don't know, we'll just have like a nice little life. And honestly, that would have been enough for me. And also, if I could travel back in time, I would tell every younger version of myself, your life is not a runaway train. You're allowed to change tracks. Being 27 is not old. And if you were interested in something else, you could pursue it.
I'm sort of shocked to hear you say that you got everything you wanted.
I know. Just not the way I wanted it. Yeah.
Like you have 4 kids.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah, I have work that means something to me. I remember my dad also worked in advertising. My dad wrote infomercials, which is filled with stories for another time. But my dad told me the point of life was to find work that was meaningful to you and find someone to share your life with. And that's it. And it's not as though, writing fitness infomercials was the most meaningful thing in the world to him, but it allowed him to take care of our family, which was meaningful to him.
Yeah.
And it allowed him to make like lifelong friendships, which was meaningful to him. So yeah, I got everything I wanted, not the way that I thought I would. Not the way that I thought I would.
I want to set the stage for everyone who doesn't know about your story with Aaron. Yeah. You're in your 20s and you're dating and you meet this guy.
Yeah.
And you describe this not just as a partnership, but as a romance.
Yes. we were flirting on Twitter, which is such a moment in time in 2010, where we were connecting over Taylor Swift. And in 2010, right, when it wasn't that cool to like Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And we were connecting over Mandy Moore as like a musical artist. And we were connecting over like pop culture, right? And then he just showed up where I was one night and everything just clicked into place. And it was the first time I hadn't had to pretend, because this person just liked me, and he like liked me. And I was writing, this is like the era of the first person essay online. And I'm writing all of these essays for audiences of dozens, right? I've got a Tumblr blog that 7 or 8 people are reading, and he's one of them. And he thinks that everything I say and write is like funny and interesting, and he wants to talk about it. And I'd never been with somebody who was interested in me, which makes me so sad, but that's why it was so easy. And that's why it was just so magical. It was literally your most annoying friend who's like, oh my God, I found him and I wasn't even looking, and you wouldn't believe it. Right off the bat, you know, we're talking about our lives together.
Yeah, you just knew.
Yeah, it was just so easy.
It's funny you say the word easy. I used to interview, I did a morning show, and I would interview this matchmaker all the time in Chicago. And I went to lunch with her one day, and she's kind of like a life coach matchmaker. She's not like one of those like snake oil salesmen. And I was like, what do all the couples you set up have in common? And she was like, it's so interesting. They all use one word. And I was like, what is it? Like big love, romance. And she goes, they all say easy. Yeah. It was easy.
Yeah. I think ease, and also like the like of it all. You know, I was raised by a man who was not terribly, who would say things like, if you want romance, go watch a movie. You know, marriage is not that romantic, right? Marriage is partnership. Marriage is like commitment. But Aaron was romantic, but he was also he just liked me. Like it's the like of it all. Like you can love somebody without truly liking them.
Yeah.
But like when your basis is just like, I like who you are, it's very easy. And I just never experienced that.
It's actually hard for me, because I listen to almost every podcast you do. It's hard for me to hear you talk about him.
Yeah, I know.
It must be really weird when other people cry about your grief.
It makes me like, truly, there's no better compliment, because it means that like I got him across.
You
like,
did. You
like,
do.
That's how he was. Like if he met you would feel like the party could not have started until you arrived, even if you were the only person who didn't know anyone else in the room. Like that was his magical power. And I do not automatically feel at ease in situations. And his power was like making people feel at ease and making them feel like they belonged. And like, I feel that way about people that I've never met who have died, because the people who love them did such a good job of like expressing them. So
and telling their stories
a lot to me. Yeah. Like I have goosebumps about that. I do.
Thank you for that. He gets diagnosed with glioblastoma.
Yeah.
4 years in?
1 year in.
1 year in?
1 year in, yeah. We've been dating for a year.
Oh my God.
He has a seizure at work. We both work in creative environments where like pranking is normal. And like, you know, like where if you left your computer open, he might send an email to the whole agency being like, sorry, I had to leave home. Yeah, I had to go home. I pooped my pants. I'll be home, you know, like, so when his coworker called me and said, has Aaron ever had a seizure? I thought,
bad prank.
And I was like, okay, idiot. Yeah, he has seizures all the time. And, you know, it wasn't a prank. And we had to go to the hospital, and I met him there. And they did all of like the imaging and the magical thinking of it all when you're young and when bad things just kind of happen to other people. We truly were like, well, you know, let's go home. Like, you know, how bad can it be? And they did an MRI, and he had a brain tumor. And a month later, we got married. And then our 3rd wedding anniversary was his funeral. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. We had like 1 really normal year. And then we had 3 really, really good years. I know it's strange to say that because he was sick and he had chemo and radiation and 2 brain surgeries. But like those 3 years, even when he was sick, were some of the happiest moments of my life.
Really?
Because we were just so focused not on like the sickness, but on just like our presence with each other. It's almost like knowing that there's an alternate universe that you are sort of like walking the plank.
Yeah.
All the time, like just sort of on the edge, wondering if you're going to get pushed out down into the sharks. Like you do appreciate the moments that feel safe and light. And he just had a natural way of focusing on the good that was there and like the fun that was there. It's weird. It's weird. We'd be like, oh yeah, well, we'll be at the hotel this weekend. Hospital. We'll be at the hospital this weekend. Not because the hospital was particularly nice, but just like, he's packing an Xbox. And he's packing an Xbox, but that's for his own time. And, like we're ordering food in and our friends will come visit. And like, what can you do to make even the terrible stuff palatable,
So terrible, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that later. It was a hugely successful pod. Did the name come out of that time?
Yeah. Terrible, thanks for asking was actually a rejected book title because the publisher thought it was too negative for a memoir about my husband dying. So it's like, okay, I'll keep that for something. But that came out of Aaron dying, actually. It came out of like the aftermath. And without him, I really was untethered. I was not equipped to navigate life without him.
So what does that look like? He passes and then the next day?
Then we're at, then maybe 2 days later, the obituary comes out and we'd written it together and, revealed his identity as Spider-Man and included his first wife, Gwen Stefani. And
Are you kidding or no?
She's never responded. And can I tell you why we had to include Gwen Stefani?
Please.
I love men because I love how delusional they are. And this is what I loved about Aaron. He would tell this story and he would say that he almost went to prom with Gwen Stefani. Because she was touring like right before Tragic Kingdom came out and he saw her at 7th Street Entry in Minneapolis. And he asked her, will you go to prom with me? And she said, oh no, I'm on tour. And he heard that as like a yes. Like when he told me that, I was like, sure, okay, yeah. Like you almost went to prom with Gwen Stefani. Sure.
For sure. It was like, it almost happened.
It almost happened.
So it was included in the obituary.
Included in the obituary. And like the number of people who are like, I had no idea he was married before. Like, oh my God, it was so classy of you to include her. And like like that obituary went viral. And this is like 2014. Like that was a simpler time, right? One algorithm to rule them all. We're all seeing the same stuff online pretty much.
Yeah.
And
so he was making you laugh even in death.
Yes. And he was just like doing what he did best, which is like making everyone else feel like they were in on the joke. So when you go through something hard, everybody asks you how you are, even though the answer should be somewhat obvious. And I don't blame them, right? Like what else are you going to ask besides like, wow, how about this weather? Yeah, you've reading anything good? How's your dad? It's so hard. We all want to do or say the right thing. It's so difficult. Everyone's an amateur. I'd never had Aaron die before, neither had anybody else, but I could just tell that people needed me to be okay. And so I said that I was fine. And the number of people, complete strangers, who emailed me after reading that obituary to spill their guts, their secrets, their traumatic ephemera all over me to a complete stranger was honestly life-saving. It really was.
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
No, I know, me neither. Like I would just get these emails and I'd be like, oh, it's not just me. All these other people are also out in the world. I might see them and think they're fine. Like when you go through something and you're out in the world and you're like, does nobody know like the world's over, right? Like we're not doing this. You can't just be driving a car. Like the world stopped spinning. Like you can't just be at the mall right now. I mean, I am, but I'm shopping for a dress for my husband's funeral. When you tell a salesperson that, it'll ruin their day. Okay. But, I I wish that I would have been honest. That's where terrible thanks for asking came from. I wish I would have told the people close to me
Really?
that I was bad. Because every time I lied about it, I made it impossible for people to show up for me. You know, when your sister is like, okay, are you okay? And you're like, and you haven't slept in like 4 days and you're, you know, checking your child's breathing every 2 seconds. And, you know, you think you have a brain tumor because you have a headache. Like, you know, you should tell somebody. You should tell somebody, and you should tell the people who care about you, not the checkout boy at Target. Like he's not getting paid enough to hear the truth. Okay.
Sometimes it's easier to tell those people.
It is. That was kind of the magic of the podcast, was like, come tell a stranger. Come tell a stranger the truth.
Is there anyone you did feel comfortable talking to after he died?
People who are like a little more on the periphery, people who were new to me and didn't have like an expectation of who or how I should be. I met my friend Mo because both of our husbands had died. We had literally nothing in common except for that. And we went to the same coffee shop, and the ladies at the coffee shop were like, you guys got to meet. You both have dead husbands. And we were like, I don't want to meet her. You know, like, I don't want to. But we did want to maintain our ability to go to that coffee shop. So we met, and it was like,
Wow.
because like we understood the experience, and we could say things to each other that we couldn't say to our loved ones, not because like they didn't care, but because like it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So yeah, find one person.
In so what's it called? Just Like That, the new
Yes.
new Sex and the City season. Towards the end of the season, Carrie goes to this like widows convention, and there's a woman that gets on stage and she starts being very funny about her husband's death. And the people in the audience at first are kind of freaked out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden everybody's laughing, and she changes the whole state of the convention. I watched that and I was like, oh, that's Nora. Like they based that character off of her. You founded a Facebook group called the Hot Young Widows Club.
I know. Yeah. That's what TV writers do, though. You know.
Did you also think that was about you?
I'm not the only one. I mean, I think everything's about me, right? Like you know. No, I mean, I think. Who knows? There's a lot of people who have started Facebook groups and things like that. But I'd say the one unrealistic thing about that scene was every widow thinks that shit is funny. Like it is the number one like thing that a widow will have in common, is just being like, we have to say something absolutely unhinged that only we will laugh at.
Yes.
And it's like kind of like a little bat signal that goes out. So yeah.
This is sort of an intense question, but do you ever cry over Aaron?
Oh, I cry about Aaron all the time.
Still?
I do, yeah, I do. And the strangest things, like he really did love Taylor Swift. When Cardigan came out, I just remember when Folklore and Evermore came out, Matthew, who I'm married to now, was like, do you need a day alone? You know? And I was like, no, I kind of want you to sit here with me. And I just put on headphones and like held his hand and like cried.
Yeah.
You know, like there's certain things that I know he would love that he never got to experience. And our son growing up, you know, and looking exactly like him and having mannerisms that there's no way he could remember when he was 22 months old, you know, when Aaron died. Like these are like hardwired into him. There are moments like that. And even moments with like this new version of my family too. These other kids have no genetic tie to Aaron, but they know him, you know, and they love him too. And like that means so much to me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it will be like, it will never not be sad that somebody dies when they're 35 years old. You know what I mean? And that will never not be like tragic. I'll never, ever in my life be able to forget the sound his mom made, you know? And I mean, sometimes I like cry because I'm so happy about the way that like his family and I have kept each other. You know, his mother is truly the person that I've learned the most about love from.
Ooh, say more.
Yeah. It's kind of tragically rare when you lose your husband to not also lose his family.
Yeah.
For so many reasons, right? It's just, loss is hard. Everybody is sort of like the spoke of their own social, emotional wheel. And it's hard to maintain connections. Things happen. But like Aaron's mom is, she's like a grandma to all of our kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like seeing her like hold the baby that I had with Matthew, you know, like seeing the way that that baby just like knows her as May, like as grandma, like seeing how she has all their pictures up on her little mantle, and just the way that she really truly shows up for all these kids and for me. And there was a moment after Aaron died where she said, someday you're going to fall in love and I just don't want to lose you. And I just remember being like, oh, you never could, you know, like you never could. But like just her ability to say that out loud and like express that, because I was afraid of the same thing too. You know, like if I meet someone, am I saying I no longer care about Aaron? And it's such a, if you've experienced it, you're like, well, no, of course not, right? Like, of course not. But that's a normal fear, right? Because we do think of love as kind of a zero-sum game. Like you either love this person or this person, right?
Yeah.
Not that love can continue and exist in many forms. But
the way you talk about Matthew, I think is so interesting. I was going to say rare, but it's actually really interesting because I've heard you talk about how Matthew helps you keep Aaron's stories and personhood alive too. There's this movie, Past Lives, that I watched on an airplane. And the whole idea is basically like, can you be with somebody who you love and can they make space for past love?
Yeah.
It's different when somebody passes, but not everybody can.
No, not everybody can.
You guys have done it really beautifully.
Yeah. He's really special, which I kind of hate to say because he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that shouldn't be rare. He kind of shouldn't get a medal for like accepting and understanding the fact that of course I would still love Aaron, but I'll give him his medal and I will give him those flowers because I know enough people who have not gotten that from other partners, like whose other partners feel like threatened by that or just feel like insecure about it in a way that I just kind of can't understand, but only because I guess I've never been in that situation and we all want to think of ourselves as expansive and bigger, maybe emotionally than we might be in a situation. But yeah, Matthew's never made me feel like there was any competition or insecurity, and falling in love with Matthew happened alongside like me really accessing my grief for Aaron because I'd been in survival mode for that whole year, not feeling anything, barely going to therapy against my will to the point where there's like a chapter in my first book that I would just like to say, like, I rescind, right? About how I don't need to go to therapy. Like, what? I was like,
you were writing in the mess. It's okay.
I was writing in it, right? I was writing in it. I was like, no, not me. Other people? Sure. Not me. Like, well, you have PTSD, you know, like it's not normal to have like, you shouldn't be having flashbacks. You shouldn't be like waking up in a panic attack. And like having a safe place, which was Matthew, like allowed me to truly grieve Aaron. So those two are like linked, and they're also like linked in kind of magical ways. I was looking through, I still have so much of Aaron's stuff and always will. And I have a box of like his old concert stubs and I was looking through them and Matthew was like, I was there. You're
kidding.
No, isn't that nuts?
Wow.
And like bands I would never go see or like have heard of. And he was like, yeah, I was there. Yeah, I was there. It's just really like to know that they were both in the same rooms, you know, is magical to me.
What's the most Aaron thing that Ralph does now?
His like he does these like little expressions and eye movements, the way he crosses his legs. He also calls me, we're on a first name basis, my child and I. But he'll call me Aaron. I always said I never had a nickname because Nora's kind of hard to nickname, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like, we're going to come up with one. And like 2 seconds later, he was like, Chronicles of Narnia. And my dad was like, oh, I can't believe I missed that one. Just like, oh, literary reference. And then he shortened that to Norn. And the way that Ralph says Norn is so Aaron to me.
Wow.
And like the shape of his hands, his eyes, they're just these like little glimpses where it's like, I see him. I see him. But mostly like his sense of humor and the jokes that he'll find in the moment, I'm like, that was good.
Yeah.
That was good. That was really good. Yeah.
You talk a lot about death anniversaries.
Yeah.
I think as you grow in grief, they change year to year. Sometimes you want different things. What do you find yourself wanting on the anniversary of Aaron's death?
I want quiet. You know, honestly, nobody does grief like Jewish people. Judaism is like the ultimate, like, I'm so bummed that I was raised Catholic. It's like, we're good up until the funeral and then that's it. So, you know, when I was introduced to like yahrzeit candles, like that, having like a remembrance, like a yearly remembrance that lasts like the length of the candle, what could be more beautiful than that?
Yeah.
I do that. And I usually I reserve that day for whatever. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, I don't know till I get there what I want.
But you're not working.
I'm not working, but I felt a lot of pressure the first year, the first death anniversary, to be like, I have to mark it, right? And I have to mark it and it has to be meaningful because I'm setting a precedent. And like, it could be anything.
Yeah.
Right? It could be anything. And the day that means the most to me now is actually Aaron's birthday. So he was a big birthday guy. He loved birthdays. He memorized all of his friends' birthdays, never missed a birthday. So the way that I remember and love Aaron is like remembering people's birthdays, making a big deal out of other people's birthdays, and then holding a birthday party for Aaron. He always called it Aaron Fest. And I buy all the kids in my life, my nieces, my nephews, my kids, something dumb and extravagant that their parents won't buy them. You know, so I'm like, in the months leading up to it, I'm like, what do you want that your parents think is a waste of money? Because Uncle Aaron doesn't believe that money is a waste, right? He thinks he'll let you have anything you want. Yeah. And we'll like watch a Marvel movie, or we always get to Taco Bell, always Taco Bell, a Baja Blast, Mountain Dew, garbage food, watch a movie, and like we really celebrate. And that'll be like Aaron's family, my family, Matthew's family.
Yeah.
And like that makes me feel close to him. But I also know that 10 years is going to feel different.
Yeah.
And as Ralph gets older, it's going to feel different for him. And so I really want him to know, like, you can reserve the right to change your mind about any of this and decide what feels meaningful to you.
Yeah.
So
when you Google your name, one of the first lines in your bio that pops up is that you were voted most humorous by the Annunciation Catholic School class of 1998.
And that's wrong because I graduated in 97. Okay,
Even better.
I didn't know. I had to do that math and I was like, yeah, I guess it was 97. But yeah, most humorous female. Andy Hannon was the most humorous male. So
quite a superlative. Where's Andy now?
Andy's coaching basketball.
So he's not really using his humor.
Teaching. I don't know. He remains one of the funniest people that I've ever met. Like, if I run into that guy, if I'm home and I run into Andy Hannon, he knows this, I will turn into a middle schooler again. And I'm like, oh man, should I go barf on Miss Murphy's shoes? Like, I'm just back to idiot status. Like, yeah, most humorous, 1997. Yeah.
So most humorous. And then your first book is It's Okay to Laugh, Crying is Cool Too.
Yes, yeah.
And you, better than anybody I have ever met or anybody's work that I have read, you are able to hold the duality of your life, the humor and the pain, so well. How did you learn how to use humor through that time?
Oh, I mean, I learned from the best. I learned from my dad and I learned from Aaron. And Aaron was never trying to like make light of a situation or of his situation. Like, we knew it was serious. We Googled it. We knew he had like 3 to 5 years to live. But he also just had a way of identifying like the light in a moment. Mm-hmm. He's like on his deathbed. He's in our guest room, in a hospital bed. And like, we're just having like an amazing conversation. He's like, I will always be here. I will always be here, no matter what. I need you to close the kitchen cabinets all the way. Because his pet peeve was like, I would just take a glass out and be like, well, I don't know, I'm going to get another glass someday. Let's just leave it open. And you'd be like, close it all the way. And please, for the love of God, stop picking your nose. And I was like, I will. And I was lying because I never will. I love it. I hate the feel of the booger in my nose. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Like he just was like, I don't know. There's people and moments where you can tell somebody is trying to like erase the reality of what's happening, you know, or distract you from it. And in that case, like humor feels bad. You know what I mean? Like when someone walks into a room and you're like, dude, just like, and then there's just like finding those moments and like seeing them and like acknowledging them. I grew up in a family that is like silly, you know, and then I married like a very silly, buoyant person. So I think I just absorbed it that way.
You quote your dad so much. As I was prepping for this, there's a few quotes I actually wrote down that I really liked. One of them was something I think I need to remember. Your dad said, don't try and wait for your life to be perfect. Just do the things when you feel them.
Yeah.
And you said Aaron was the first person who really got that. Like, why overplan?
Yeah.
Do you think about your dad a lot still?
I do think about my dad a lot. I think about my dad a lot because our relationship was really complicated and he loved us and also was a very injured person. You know, my dad went to Vietnam when he was 17 years old.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of compassion for him, but I've had to sort of process all of that without him. So we had a movie-worthy death experience with our dad, gathered around him, you know, and I told him, like, I love you, you did a good job, you were a good dad, and he literally looked up at me like a child, like, are you sure, really? You know, because I know he felt that too. And I think at the end, you do see things a lot more clearly, but I've had to kind of put those pieces together without him. And my dad was not the kind of person who would say like, I love you, you know, I'm proud of you. But he would like at the most random moments drop something like that on you, which I think was his way of trying, you know, trying to say like, I love you, I care about you, I can see something in you that was also something I needed, and let me give you this little piece of advice without, you know, opening up too much of a conversation about our feelings.
You had so much loss in a short period of time.
Yeah.
When hard things happen in my life, I think about time so differently.
Yeah.
Do you, like, how did everything you went through impact your relationship with time?
Time is almost meaningless to me now, truly. Like, I don't know. How did it impact yours?
This sounds so weird, but I realized like nothing mattered.
Yes. Yeah.
And nothing. I released and like surrendered to uncertainty. I used to think I had a lot of control over things.
Yeah.
And I realized I have almost no control.
It's nuts. Yeah.
In a weird way, it was comforting. Did you ever feel like you were running out of time? Because you're such a driven person.
I think that I was experiencing, especially in that first year, almost like a true midlife crisis. My dad was 64 when he died.
Yeah.
And so I turned 32 in the year after all of that. And I was like, okay, this could very literally be the halfway point.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like necessarily like a TikTok pressure, but I did feel, I think, a very real pressure to do everything that I could while I could do it, whether or not it was the right time. And that's my dad's influence, right?
Yeah.
Like even writing that first book, you know, I had an editor be like, are you sure you don't want to wait like 5 or 10 years? And I could have, and I would have written a very, very different book.
Yeah.
But like, this is a perspective. You know, like when you're in it, that's a perspective too. It's not the only perspective. I've read plenty of books that were written from like a safe, comfortable distance where you can turn something into something meaningful. And the death wasn't meaningful, right? Like there's no like meaning to Aaron dying of brain cancer. Like the meaning is like the love and the life and what you make of it. But I think having all of those things happen have made me very good about not worrying about big things, honestly. You know, like one of our kids needs an MRI. Okay, well, we'll know when we know, right? Like they'll get it and then we'll know.
Been through those before.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't, people are like, are you worried that Matthew's going to die? I'm like, I never think about it. Right?
Right.
No, I'm like, he will or he won't.
Right.
Like, and that's, you know, hopefully I get to go first this time, but you never know.
Do you feel that way?
Yeah. I want to go first next time. Like,
it was too traumatic.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I won't be any better at it.
Yeah.
You know, because it'll be totally different. It'll be Matthew instead of Aaron. It'll be all of these kids. It'll be, you know, a totally different version of myself. But we talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
Like we talk about it a lot with our kids too, because I don't want them to be scared of death, you know, and I don't want them to be like afraid to talk about things that matter to them, like before it's too late.
Yeah.
So
say your feelings the way that Aaron's mom did.
Yes. And like say like, you know, make sure that you're like maintaining and like building those connections that will sustain you. And like my kids know, right? Like when I die, like bury me in a bed of moss, you know, like Facebook's trying to sell me a hot pink coffin right now because I had norovirus for 2 days. It's like, so I'm not ready. And that's not how I'm going out.
Matches your outfit.
Yeah, it really was. Also, I was like, it is shiny. No, moss. Okay. Moss, forest death.
Okay, I want to totally switch it up.
Yeah.
Because I think we covered grief.
We did. Okay. We covered it. What are you drinking?
Oh, this is Magic Mind. It helps me with my focus. Do you want one?
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay. It's like a little bit of caffeine, but it's all natural.
Oh. Do you have to shake it? Okay. I just did anyways.
Yep.
All right.
And you
cheers.
just shake it up. Do more, stress less.
Cheers.
Should I tell you to chug?
Chug. Oh, that's nice.
I get like the burst of energy without the coffee jitters.
Yeah. I can only have one coffee and then I feel like I'm going to fly through space, but not in a good way. I'm about to levitate. I'm just vibrationally unwell after.
Do you drink
more
coffee
than
all
one.
day?
No. I have one in the morning, and like if I have one afternoon, I know what I'm doing. I know I'm ruining tomorrow.
I feel the same way.
Yeah. And I'll be up at like 11 at night being like
I can't go to bed if I drink it past 11 a.m. That's why I'll drink these if I need a little boost.
Okay, and it won't like jack up tomorrow. That's great.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's like a little bit sweet, but not sweet.
So you are someone who never shies away from the messy truth. You just said you wrote the book up here.
Yeah, I did.
In this season of your life, is there a messy truth that you feel like you're facing?
Oh, yeah. And I was sort of circling it for a long time and like showing glimpses of it, right? And I wanted to call it something else. I wanted to just call it stress. I wanted to just call it transition. I wanted to just call it life. But like I am and have been like profoundly burned out. And I thought that I could, I guess, like still work my way out of it or work my way through it because like there is still a huge part of me that knows, that kind of still wants to like compare myself against anyone else and be like, okay, but like who cares, right? Like, okay, you know, like who gets to be burned out even, right? Isn't everybody burned out? We are recording this in downtown LA. Like, do you think anybody living under the 101 is like not burned out? You know, like, do you think anyone down here is thriving right now? No, right? It's like, it's a horrible time to be a person in the world. Like it is really difficult for everybody. We are like drinking from a fire hose of human suffering or experiencing it.
Yeah.
We have never had a higher cost of living and lower wages. There's never been a huger wealth gap. Like we are really confronting generations of issues all at once. My mom is 74 and I'm like, was it this bad in the 70s? And she's like, what? No, you know, well, I don't think so. So it's a lot. And it's easy, I think, to be like, well, okay, so it's not that bad for me personally, but
it doesn't matter.
How bad
You're not
does it have
allowed to be burnt out.
Yeah, how bad
Do you
does
know
it
where
have
it's
to be?
coming from?
I think it's coming from myself. The call is coming from inside the building. And I think for a long time, part of my work in therapy was part of the reason why I worked so hard the minute that Aaron died was because I had to, right? Like we were young. We had not saved money. You can't get life insurance once you already have brain cancer. I had resigned from my job, I'd stopped going.
Yeah.
They didn't want to pay me anymore for not doing a job. That's fair, right? That's fair. I was like, no, you still pay me.
Yeah.
I won't be coming or doing any of this work, but like, come on. So I didn't have like a steady source of income. I was not thriving, and I just replaced my feelings with actions. Like I processed through a lot of my stuff through work, but also a lot of it was like a way to avoid feeling stuff, right?
That's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm not into drugs or alcohol.
Work.
It's not for me.
No, I'm addicted to work.
I think I avoid my romantic life by working because
yeah.
it's a productive thing.
Yes. Yeah. No one's going to judge you for it, right?
No.
It's like, no,
they applaud you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized that.
Yeah.
When did you realize you were burnt out?
Oh, I mean, not long enough ago, right? I did a whole live show and a tour where I got on stage and I talked about how, sometimes when I'm walking home from dropping the kids off at school, I just kind of like cross my fingers and hope like I get clipped by an SUV. I can just go into a coma for like 6 weeks. Like I don't want to be physically marred. I just want to be forced to rest for 6 weeks in a hospital-like setting so that nobody can be mad at me that I can't do these things that I said I would do. And I just want the world to like stop, right? I don't necessarily want to die.
Yeah.
Like I do want to come back, but for a while I want to be just like, I want to hit the reset button at the back of my skull, power down, and then like reanimate.
You're not the first person to sit in that chair and tell me that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I was at school drop off and a mom said to me, sometimes I just like kind of want to get hit by a car. And I was like, girl, oh my God, me too. Like, oh my God, me too. Like, it's all just too much. And like, I'm my own boss and I'm the worst boss that I've ever had.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you think you can't go to lunch? What are you talking about? No. You can't go work out in the middle of the day. During the day, you have to work. And then also at night after the kids go to bed, you should work. And then on weekends, why don't you work? Right? You're on a trip, bring your laptop, get some work done, get some stuff done. Right?
Yeah.
And I did that. And it's been 10 years almost of just like more and more and more and more and more. And any one of these things would have been a lot. But when I finally said that to my therapist, she literally went, welcome. I've been waiting for you to reach this conclusion.
That's the worst when they freaking
Yes.
know and don't tell you.
I was like, oh, she was like, you've gotten so close. You've gotten so close. And now you're here. So what are you going to do about it?
So to echo her,
Yeah.
as you are here in LA on a work trip,
On a work trip. Yeah. Yep.
doing a podcast for work.
Yes. Yes.
What are you going to do about it?
The first thing I did was that I tried to look at the way that this was affecting other people too, because I think it's very rare that just you are burning out. And I think burned out people burn out other people. And we had a conversation as a team, the whole team who makes like, it's going to be okay and makes terrible thanks for asking. And like the team of people that I make podcasts with. And I asked, is anyone having fun? Does anyone want to keep doing this? And this is like our main job, right? Like this is like the biggest show that we make. It still has an audience. It had never occurred to me until I asked that question that we had a choice in what we were doing. And, it's a scary choice, right? Like we're like, okay, we're just going to not get paid to do this thing that we've been doing, but does anyone want to do it? And like when you have a conversation with a 24-year-old who's burned out on like the work that you hired her to do, like you got to make a change. You got to make a change. So that's the first thing.
Wow.
I didn't drop like the lowest thing. I dropped like the biggest thing. And
That's scary,
I know.
Nora.
Are you scared for me? Everyone's scared for me.
I'm not scared for you because
Yeah.
you're a person who takes big swings.
Yeah.
So, and you're an idea machine.
And what's the worst that could happen? Like, no one's going to die because of this podcast. No one's going to die. And there's been a couple other things that I had let go of in the past, like the widow group being one of them. And like, where I just thought like, oh God, but other people need it, right? But other people want me to keep doing it. Like, and I could truly hear Aaron being like, stop. I am here for work, but what did I do before this? I sat in my hotel and I read a book.
That's awesome. What'd you read?
I'm reading called April, May, June, July. It's by Allison B. Hart. It's her second novel, and it's a 4-person narrative. These siblings named April, May, June, July were dealing with the disappearance of their dad as a contractor in Iraq in 2004.
Whoa.
The book takes place in 2014 when one of them believes she saw him alive.
Cool.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is just for fun, right? I'm like literally just reading a book for fun.
Just reading about her dad being taken for fun.
I'm like so addicted to work, Danielle. I literally was like, well, what can I turn this, like, how can I make anything into work?
Yeah.
Like I got myself a Nintendo Switch to like relax. The only game I play, I work in the game. I play Stardew Valley and I'm like running a farm. I'm in the mines, I'm like selling my crops. Like, so I have to learn how to like live.
I'm not saying anything you haven't thought of, but it just sounds like you've been surviving.
Yes.
Understandably.
Yes.
And now you're kind of.
Yeah, now I gotta like live. Like life is for the living. I gotta figure out how to live.
You write one thing about growth. It sucks.
It sucks so bad.
It sounds like you're in a growth period.
Yeah.
What's been the hardest part of yourself to face throughout the last 10 years?
The hardest part of myself to face over is like myself. Is like trying to figure out who I am outside of what has happened to me and what I do. And like to see myself, like to actually see myself.
Yeah.
I have almost a pathological level of like guilt and shame about like anything at all, right? Like I hate disappointing people, which is like intense codependence and like needing to like fix things for other people. A part of that was, I truly could not understand why Aaron liked me so much. You know what I mean? He was so easy to like. No one didn't like Aaron, right? Like plenty of people are like, Nora? Oh God, not for me. No one ever said that about Aaron. And so I really did let that kind of grow into a like, well, why would I be alive? I better earn my keep here, right? I better prove that like I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Like that's really hard and it bums me out.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure, and it's also like to be, in your 40s and be like, oh, I wish that I would have like looked at myself like with compassion a little bit earlier so that I didn't have to do so much catch up work now.
I just interviewed a psychologist about optimism, and I've always like been a proponent of self-esteem, like who isn't, right? It's like who doesn't want to raise confident kids? And she says like she doesn't really like self-esteem. She doesn't focus on it. She says that self-compassion is way more important. And that's the shame part you're talking about, which I just was kind of shocked by.
Yeah.
I think I've been going towards something that I'm not sure it's the right thing. Like we talk about confidence with women in particular, and like maybe it's a different C word. It's compassion.
Yeah. Because like if you make the wrong choice as a woman, it like the world is harder on you.
Yeah.
Right? Like we really do forgive women a lot less than we forgive men. And like you can see that in even just like casual conversation, and you can see that in like bigger meta conversations too, around like pretty much any celebrity, there are men who have done like horrible things that people are like, I think he's suffered enough. And then there are women who have just like dared to be like slightly unlikable, and we're like,
or like J-Lo right now gets so much. It's like, what? She just took a big swing. It didn't really work for some people.
Okay. Yeah. When I watched it, I truly, watching the J-Lo documentary built self-compassion for myself.
Ooh, why?
I really did. I was like, this is a woman who has $400 million and is still tortured by the way somebody, a stranger in Cincinnati, Ohio, views her and her romantic relationships.
Yeah.
The seeking of that external validation, I wanted to like reach through the screen, like pick her up, hold her like a baby and be like, you're good. Like,
you're great.
Good. You're good. You're okay. No one needs to understand, but like, I love external validation.
Yeah.
And it's like, I really do think that is like a lack of self-compassion. Like
it is.
Like there's not a person in the world, I would love to meet them who can't, my friend did meet her husband when they were like 15. Aside from Gia Bellamy, okay, there's no one in the world who can be like, yeah, I don't know. dated and everybody was like wonderful. Every relationship made perfect sense. And I have like no regrets. Like who amongst us has not like, you know, made
That's
some
so
missteps?
interesting you say that. My mom is always like very critical about my choices, and it deeply hurts me because I'm like, I had to make the mistakes to get it, to learn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Motherhood, parenthood is like the biggest examination of your own ego. There's so much projection in parenthood. Like I have said this on the podcast, but the most unconditional love goes from a child up, because you are born and you're like, hey, these are my people, no expectations. And like, when you have a child, adopt a child, acquire a child in whatever way, like your family comes together, there's so much expectation. You have thought about what your family is going to look like, what this child's going to look like, what their path will look like. It is very hard to hold yourself back from not like pushing a kid onto a path that you wish you would have taken. And there's something about mothers and daughters where like we are like naturally inclined to like see ourselves in them and be like, that was something people didn't like about me. I want to make sure you don't get that, like, or that's something that I don't like about myself. I don't want you to like it too much. It's so wild. And like, I have to try all the time to just like let my kids be people. Like they're whole people, even when they're little, like even when they just want to, you know, wear mismatched shoes. Listen to whatever music they want to listen to. You know what I mean? I'm like, kids are I'm embarrassing. Yeah. Right? Being a person is embarrassing.
We're all so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Every time I post something on Instagram, I'm like, I'm so embarrassing.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like, oh God, just the humanity of it all.
Yes.
The humanity of all. I think that's what people are reacting to with J-Lo too. Like they're embarrassed because they're like, oh, at all of our core, right? Like we want to be like seen and heard and understood. And this is a person who's like pushing for it, right? Like who's pushing for it. And she wants like
so
the world
interesting.
I don't know.
I think a lot about, we have a mutual friend, Elise Lunan, who I know you love. And she has this quote that I talk about all the time about how like we have to be careful about how we treat women who dare to be seen, because it's not just like they're celebrities. It really is like a warning shot for every woman.
It is.
And I can't help think about that with J-Lo, and like we're watching an unhealed person, and we're all unhealed.
Yes, all of us. Yeah. And it's like, if we could, you know, read our mother's diaries, you know, if we could like see each other's like secret thoughts, like we would see that a lot more clearly. And I think like when you give somebody else like that kind of compassion, like you do sort of by default give it to yourself. But like there's also like, all life is a series of choices, and you never know what the right choice was until it's too late. That's it. There's like, you did what you could, and that's kind of it. You know? I
kind of look at it like part of the whole thing is just making the choice you made right.
Yeah. Yes. I think you said that to me once.
Really?
Yes. You're like, don't make the right choice, make the choice right. Or did I see that in one of your other interviews?
I don't know if it was me.
I feel like you said that to me.
I deeply believe it.
Yeah.
Maybe I did.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I like that.
It's like, what is the right choice? It's like, I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know.
We'll never know.
We'll never know. You know, I hated my name growing up. I wanted to be like Kristen or like, you know, Stacy. And now I'm like, oh, I love my name. Good choice, parents. You don't know, right? In 5th grade, if they would have let me change my name, I would have been like, I'm Kristen Stacy. And I would have changed my last name too. You know, Johnson. Okay.
Yes. Like, I think we all had that moment.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to do some rapid fire with you.
Yep.
Okay, what's something you know for sure?
Oh, something I know for sure. What, rapid fire or the slowest fire you've ever seen?
Rapid.
Starting a fire from scratch. Oh God, that I don't really know anything.
Your dad seems so wise to me. What line of his plays over and over in your head?
I think all the time about when he was in the ICU and he told me we never really leave one another. And
that's so comforting.
Yeah. And he is Catholic, right? It's kind of a mystical religion, but also he's a very practical person. I've never tried to speak with him through a medium because I feel like he'd be offended by that. But I like feel that truly. Like I really do feel that, and I can feel his presence in my life.
I talked to a medium one time. My grandpa was very similar, and she was like, your grandfather's coming through and he's laughing. He thinks this is ridiculous. I was like, it's him for sure.
Yeah, my dad would be like, oh, this bullshit. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. What do you need? Okay. What? There's a man who would like call me and then turn his phone off. I'm like,
Yes.
I can't call you back.
I can't.
Okay. You turned it off. Yeah.
There's something about that generation of Midwestern men
I
too.
know. I'm like, just yell at me with the long vowels. Yeah.
The long A's and O's. A quality in yourself that you really like.
I like that I am excited about other people. You know what I mean? I like
really
that I get excited about other people's excitement, you know?
It's very Aaron of you.
I think so, yeah.
A quality you wish you could change.
I wish I was more patient.
The best advice you've received about love.
That love is more than romance.
A book that should be required reading.
Oh, Elise Lunen's book on our best behavior. And also The Four Agreements. And also Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Check, check, and check.
I give Man's Search for Meaning to every teenager that I know, because like that's such a time of existential dread and feeling lost. And I got that book from a family friend who had studied with Viktor Frankl like 100 years ago. And I remember he gave me just the oldest edition of it. And I was like, I don't want to read something. And that's like a life-changing book.
So cool.
Yeah.
Okay, grab the Question Everything deck.
Oh, this one is so fun. Like it's so, just a plug for the Question Everything deck. This is so fun to do with kids.
Really?
Yes, it's so fun to do with kids.
No one's ever told me that. Thank you.
Yeah, I did with just over dinner with our kids, and I can't remember, but my 7-year-old was just like cracking us up because he takes it so seriously. You know,
well, I think kids hate being asked like, "How was school?"
They hate it.
So it's good. I like that you're using the deck.
They don't want to hear. They don't want to talk about school. They don't want to talk about they really, kids want existential questions. They really do. Like
they contemplate them all the time. Like, why is the sky blue?
Yes.
Why?
Like my 7-year-old asking me casually in the car, he's like, why do you think we're here? I was like, what? He's like, yeah, why do you think people exist? And I was like,
huge question, buddy.
Like when here we are at McDonald's. Okay, am I drawing one?
Yes, okay. Whichever one you're drawn to.
Okay. Ooh, what is the smartest decision you've ever made?
Wow.
Am I asking you?
No.
Oh, the smartest decision I've ever made? Oh, proposing to Aaron. I proposed to Aaron the night that he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and we were laying in his hospital bed, and I was like, yeah, we're going to get married as soon as you get out of here. He was like, you can't marry me. And I was like, we're going to get married. And that was the smartest decision I made.
It felt right in your gut.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, that's just what we're going to do. It's just what we're going to do. And the easiest too.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're wonderful.
You are really something, Nora.
Yeah, you are too. And also this is like, you got to do this with kids.